Hey folks, it's your buddy and pal, Karnik, Serenity Wargaming and Explanations. Back again, another Star Wars Armada upgrade card. Before I get into, we're going to be looking at Clone Captain Silver. Just a quick shout out for Adepticon. We are in the process of sending out emails for invites for those that do have the invites for the World Championship, not only for Armada, but Legion and X-Wing as well. It is a slow process. It has to be manually done. Just know that everyone is working as quickly as they can with the time that we have each day. And of course, if you are having some difficulties or anything like that, don't hesitate to reach out. I can't promise that I can fix anything or do anything, but just know that if I can, I'll do my best. All right, let's get into Clone Captain Silver. Oh, if you didn't notice, I changed my background with this Crash Snow Speeder, the walkers on Hoth. I really like this background. Okay, Clone Captain Silver. So let's start off with this card looking at, how do you know where they go? How do you know they're cloned? Well, if you look at the bottom right hand corner of the card, you'll see the faction icon there. It's for the Republic. Next to its point cost, which is 4 points. How do you know this is like an officer upgrade card? If you look in the other corner, you'll see the officer icon there. That lets you know that you can equip this upgrade card to a ship that has an officer slot, which to my knowledge, there never has been a ship that hasn't had any officer slots. So there we go. Clone Captain Silver, even though they're all clones and they're all technically the same person, Clone Captain Silver, if you look in front of them, you'll see a little dot or bullet point. They are unique. There is only one Clone Captain Silver. Clone Captain Silver, as I always do, I'm going to read through the card and then I'm going to just a quick brief. This is how it works, and then I'll kind of dive into some of the intricacies or things you should know about when utilizing this upgrade card. Okay. When you execute a maneuver, and again, you in this case is the ship that this card is equipped to. When you execute a maneuver during your determined course step, if you have not resolved a navigation command during this activation, you may exhaust this card to increase or decrease your speed by up to 3. If you do, you cannot resolve a navigation command during this activation. You can spend tokens from this card to ready it. Okay, so Clone Captain Silver, again, just I'll touch on like what do those red and blue bars mean, this, that, again, I'll touch on that. In a nutshell, this is what Clone Captain Silver is doing for you. Hey, are you executing a maneuver and it's during your determined course step? Well, then you can, and again, as long as you haven't spent a navigation dial or token, you can exhaust this card, and this allows you to change your speed for that ship. Now, it doesn't do anything about yaw, but it allows you to speed jank, is what I like to call it. And once it's exhausted, in order to ready it, you have to spend either a navigation command token, either from the ship itself or from the card. And again, I'll touch on that a little bit more in a second. But overall, Clone Captain Silver, what's it accomplishing for you? It's allowing you to have speed control, very similar to like Ozzel, Admiral Ozzel for the Empire, without having to worry about setting dials to your navigation command. Or in some situations where you do have your dial set to a navigation command, and say there's like some slicer tools nearby, or for whatever reason, you don't have the command available for what you need, well, you can still just go zoom. So for Clone Captain Silver, now let's get into some of the intricacies of this upgrade card. So first thing I want to point out is for the blue bar, in order to get the one navigation token to start on this upgrade card, this only takes place during deployment. So for example, if you set aside the ship that they are equipped to, say with like hyperspace assault or some other ability that you're able to set ships aside where they're not deployed in deployment, and say you plop this ship down, in the middle of the game in a round later on, you will not get a token on this card because the token will only be put on the card, this is per rules reference guide, if the ship is deployed during deployment. So something to keep in mind, and it's not that that really negates the use of the upgrade card, because even if you don't get the token, you still get the one-time use out of it, which is still, I feel like, very efficient for 4 points. But again, not if you are able to deploy this ship, during regular deployment and you didn't set it aside, well, you get to use this card for free once, and then you have the token on the card. which you can spend to then ready it. So like you get 2 uses of this upgrade card, which is, I mean, again, for 4 points for 2 free speed activations, which typically you're going to have at least 2 opportunities where you're really going to want to speed jank. One, before you get into an engagement where you're trying to throw your opponent off rhythm. And then later on, once you've, spent the token on the card to ready it, is when you're like, okay, my ship is in danger. Okay, I need to speed up. I need to get out of here. I don't have a navigation command ready. And then you just go zoom. So that's great for things like Venators or Consulars. You're not going to get a whole lot of mileage out of the Victory or the Pelta. I wouldn't recommend taking them on those cards. But like the Acclimators, Consulars, Venators, all great for those. Because even if like you start at like speed 3, like your deployment, well, you can activate this card and drop to speed 0 and throw your opponent off rhythm. Or let's say you start at speed 3 and you move, and then your next movement you just drop to speed 0, you refresh it, and the next time you activate the move, you can jump back up to speed. Like this allows for so much crazy speed jank, it's ridiculous. And like I said, I really like it on Venators because typically it's going to be one of the last ships either you want to activate first or activate last, depending on if you're first or last. But I kind of have gotten a little bit off topic. I'm kind of going more into uses of the card without going into some explanations. So let's dial it back in and get back into that. So again, it's when you execute a maneuver during your determined course step, which again, your determined course step is that ship's activation. And again, if you haven't resolved the navigation command, that activation. So like, for example, I know there's some instances where a ship can do some maneuvers where, they aren't activating, but can spend like a navigation token maybe to speed jank or chain speed or something like that. So again, as long as you haven't done a navigation command, that activation, again, you didn't spend a navigation dial or token in your determined course step, you can use this card. At any point, if you you can't like do Clone Captain Silver and then say, oh, and now I'm also doing the navigation command. It's like, well, no, that's a confliction. Like you can't say, well, this takes precedence over this. Like you can't like structure an order. I've had somebody argue with me. It's like, well, I just do Clone Captain Silver first and then I do navigation command. It's like, no, that's not how that works, because as soon as you do a navigation command, it negates Clone Captain Silver. You have to unexhaust it. It's not like it's like an ordered structure where that takes precedence over the other thing, because it specifically calls out you can't resolve a navigation command. So, the logic there just does not work. Trust me on that one. Okay. So, when you exhaust the card, again, you can increase or decrease your speed by up to 3. And again, if you do that, you cannot resolve a navigation command during this activation. So again, it's all there in the wording, but for some reason, people still try to argue with me about it, which just doesn't make sense. Now, one thing I do want to point out for Clone Captain Silver is that the navigation token that is on their upgrade card, you can't spend that for any other purpose. I've had people be confused, like, oh, I have all these tokens on these cards, I can just spend them for my ship. It's like, no, it's assigned to the upgrade card. It's not assigned to the ship. If it was assigned to the ship, the token would be on the ship card, or, it's assigned to the ship. So again, the token on the upgrade card is specifically, its sole purpose is to be used by that upgrade card. It can't be used by anything else. Okay, and in this instance, like it says, because the card explicitly calls it out, is the reason why you can choose to spend tokens from this upgrade card to ready. Otherwise, when you have to pay the ready cost, that has to come from the ship. That's what that red bar is. It's like, oh, you want to ready this upgrade card, you have to spend 1 navigation token. But again, that explicit instruction that you can instead choose a token on the card rather than your ship if you want, that's spelled out there. So I know for some of this, especially if you're a brand new player, that may sound a little confusing. Just review the topics in the rules reference guide. Just kind of sit down and reread it over and over if you have to. Look at some of the other videos where I talk about, the blue bar and being able to spend off it. But ultimately, Clone Captain Silver is just, for 4 points, crazy good value for this card. Because again, you get 2 uses out of it without having to worry about if you have navigation tokens or not. Because you get the first time use where exhausts, spend the navigation token off its upgrade card, refresh it, use it again, and then if you have the ability to put more navigation tokens on it if you need it in the future, you can. But I honestly, in most of the games that I've played where I've utilized this upgrade, you only need it for the 2 uses. As I said before, you use it before you get into that initial engagement where you're really trying to find your optimal positioning. And then you're fighting, you're duking it out, and then like your Venator, your consular is like, oh, I'm in danger. I need to leave now. And then you use that second use to go max speed, and you, as they say, turn and burn, and you just get out of there. You get out of dodge, and you just run away for the rest of the fight. So that's, like I said, great uses, because Republic really, I mean, there's going to be some cases, especially like where the Venator, you're going to be fighting with some of the other Republic officers for that spot. Usually, you're fighting either Adigali or you're fighting Barris. In some cases, you're fighting Clone Navigation Officer. But it's really one of those things you kind of have to make a decision on what's going to be most beneficial. I know on the consulars, your Clone Captain Silver often conflicts with Clone Captain Zack, because Zack and a consular with Swift Return is just such good value. But if you are wanting to make something super zoomy, Swift Return with Clone Captain Silver also is pretty good. I like that. But ultimately, for Venators, I usually, if it's a Venator 2, which has the defensive retrofit, and I'm wanting to be kind of like a brawler, but also a squadron command, and especially if I have first player activation, I really like taking Clone Captain Silver, because that way I can try to line up the double arcs, and I'm activating a bunch of squadrons. For Gar, it's a little difficult for them to get that last first that you really need. But even if it is the last ship going for you, not so much your opponent, it usually can still be tanky enough to where you can get it in positioning where it's still optimal. You get a lot of use out of it. You go first, and then you clone Captain Silver and just get out of dodge. So there's a lot of use for it. I've seen a lot of players use that combo very effectively. But of course, let me know how you use Clone Captain Silver. Maybe you do take them on a Pelta or a Victory. Let me know how those things have worked out for you. Let me know how you've been using the upgrade card. Appreciate you taking time watching the video, and hey, I'll catch you next time. Quick shout out to the sponsors of the channel. Firstly, to Otherworld Events. Regardless if you're needing assistance for event managing, planning, organizing, how to even start, or just need specific ideas for what it is you're doing that you already have a plan for, Otherworld Events can help you out. Second, to Admiral Tater Ship Shop. Admiral Tater Ship Shop, while specializing in Star Wars Armada miniature items, also has X-Wing and Legion items. If you're looking to really get some great looking acrylics on the table, whether it be holders for your upgrade cards or tokens or acrylic tokens, and most importantly, you just want a perfect range ruler with no flaws or errors in it that's going to give you exact measurements every time, highly recommend Admiral Tater. It's the range rulers I use at tournaments. I know they're cut perfectly, they're going to range perfectly, and I'm going to get that best measurement every single time. Also, just look at everything they have available.